Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marin and here you will find a little beauty, a little books, and a little teaching content. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, I would love for you to subscribe and stick around and join me in my little corner of YouTube. Today's video is going to be my third quarter reading wrap-up where I am going to take you through all of my reading stats from the last quarter of the year. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in 2023, I wanted to be better about doing like goal recaps and things like that. And I also decided to start doing quarterly reading recaps where I could just go over the stats from like the previous 3 months. And we are now in the final quarter of 2023, which is crazy. So that means it is time for another wrap-up. So in this video, I am going to be recapping all of my reading for the months of July, August, and September of 2023. I will have little graphics to put here for you to look at, and we're just going to go through kind of rapid fire style, I guess, and just go over my reading from the last 3 months. Now, I do film monthly wrap-up, so I will link them down below for the last 3 months if you would like to go back and watch. But right now we're going to just be talking about an overview of all of the stats from July, August, and September. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the last 3 months, I read a total of 33 books. I did do one reread, which was Shadowlands by Kate Bryan. This is on my 10 series to finish in 2023 list. And I needed to reread the first book before I could continue the series because I didn't remember enough about it. So that was my lone reread from the last 3 months. And I also did have my second DNF of the year in the last 3 months, which was The Sea of Tranquility by Katya Millay. If you want to hear more about those, I read both of those in September, so you can check that recap out at your leisure. This breaks down to a total of 11,792 pages read, which is very, very exciting. July was actually quite a large reading month for me, and as a result, I did not do as much reading in August, but then did a lot of reading again in September. So I've been doing pretty well, very pleased with the total amounts of books I've been able to get read. To break that down into the format of the books that I read, I did listen to 14 audiobooks. I read 11 physical books, 3 ebooks, and then I read 5 that were a combination of physical and audio, which I call mixed media. In terms of the type of story, I read 19 series books and 14 standalone books. I am trying to get through quite a lot of series this year, so I'm happy that I was able to do some series reading over the last 3 months. And in terms of that series breakdown, I started 4 new series, one of which was technically a reread in Shadowlands, so technically 3 new series, but Shadowlands counts as starting a series because it is the first book. I continued 10 series and I finished 5 series. I decided to DNF 0 series, so as of right now, all 4 of the series that I started, I do have plans to continue with at some point. In terms of book acquisition, I read 11 of my own books from my physical TBR shelf, and I borrowed 22 books from various places. This includes the library, Scribd, and also Internet Archive, which is where I am doing the reading of the Nancy Drew books. For genres, I had a decent breakdown. So I read 6 fantasy books, 6 historical fiction books, and 6 thriller books. So all 3 of those were my top categories. Then I read 3 contemporary books, 2 biography books, and 2 mystery books. And then I had 1 each of classic, adventure, nonfiction, horror, magical realism, science fiction, and paranormal. So a nice spread of genres, which makes me very happy, keeps things fresh, and I don't get tired of reading certain things. For age category, I did read 14 adult books, 13 young adult books, 3 middle grade books, and 3 children's books. And my ratings breakdown works out to 6 5-star reads, 12 4-star reads, 12 3-star reads, and 2 2-star reads. Now, I mentioned in my September reading wrap-up that I do give 0.5, so 4.5, 3.5, etc. But when I am tracking them on my spreadsheet, there is no category for the 0.5, so it's just lumped in with the 3s, 4s, etc. So I don't have separate categories for the 0.5s. Everything is just in there together. Now, one of the things I have been doing this year is doing a semi-book no-buy, which means that I'm not bringing in very many books per month. The one exception that I had was my Book of the Month subscription, so obviously that brings in 1 book per month. And then I did place some pre-orders that are obviously coming in throughout 2023. So I want to go ahead and just talk over the 5 new books that I added to my collection in the last quarter of the year, and 3 of them were Book of the Months, 2 of them were pre-orders. So I'll go ahead and just kind of roll on through. So in terms of Book of the Month, I did pick up The Connellys of County Down by Tracy Lang. It's up on my shelf, so you get to just look at the cover here because I was too lazy to pull it down. I also picked up Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, which I am planning on reading before the end of the year. And my September Book of the Month was The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin. Now, in terms of my pre-orders, 2 did come in during the last 3 months. They actually both came in September. So the first one was The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. I have enjoyed everything I've read by her, so wanted to add this one to my collection as well. And then I also pre-ordered The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan, which is the 6th book in his Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. He went back to his roots here. This is classic Percy Jackson, so of course I had to pick it up and add it to my collection. So not too shabby. I didn't bring in too many books to my collection, and actually I believe 3 of these are for sure going to be read before the end of the year, which is even better. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about my monthly favorites. So I am doing kind of like a book battle, if you will, where I'm using like a bracket and I'm writing down my favorite books of each month to determine which was my favorite of the year, which will be helpful when I do my final reading recap. But for the month of July, my favorite book of the month was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. My favorite book from August was Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. And my September favorite was The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Now this one I only actually gave 4 stars. September was not a great reading month, so keep that in mind. But my overall favorite from the last 3 months is Murder on the Orient Express. However, if I compare it to my favorite from the first half of the year, which is The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood, I still think The Love Hypothesis is my overall favorite of the year. So nothing has quite unseated that one, and we'll see what the last 3 months involve if I can finally knock that one off of its pedestal. So in my last wrap up, which I will link up above, I did set some goals for the 3rd quarter of the year, and we're going to go ahead and see how well or not I did on these goals. So the first goal that I'd set for myself was to read 6 more books from my 23 and 2023 list, which I did do. My next goal was to try to read 2 classics, which I did not do. The only classic that I read in the last 3 months was The Histories by Herodotus. So I am not doing well on my classics goal at all. And it's actually made me do some thinking about how I want to try to plan my classics reading for 2024. So I will talk more about that at another time, but it's definitely something that I'm looking at and doing some thinking about because I would really like to catch up on some classics, take care of reading some classics that are on my physical shelf, and it has not happened in 2023. The next goal was to finish at least 4 series from my 10 series to read in 2023 list, which I also did not do. I did finish 2 of them, and I've made progress in several of them, but I have not fully completed them as of yet. And then the last goal was to read one book of the month book per month. I only managed to do that in the month of July, so again, that was a fail. Now, of course, it's time to set some new goals for the final 3 months of the year. Some of these are going to sound very similar because I just talked about them from last quarter's goals, but the first one is going to be to finish my 23 in 2023 list. I am on track to do this. I have 4 books remaining, one of which I plan to be starting within the next week or so. So this one is definitely on pace. I don't see any issue with getting this one done. I also want to finish my 10 series to read in 2023 list, obviously. I still have 7 series to finish from that list, which means I have only finished 3 of them. Not great, but I've made progress in a lot of them in the month of September, and I only have 1 book remaining on, I believe, 4 or 5 of those series. So I'm definitely doing very well, and I'm actually reading the final book in one of the series currently. So again, I don't think this will be an issue, but I'm definitely leaving it to the last minute. I again want to try to read one book of the month book per month for the remainder of the year. I've actually planned them out. So in October, I am hoping to read The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin, which you just saw from my new purchases. I also would like to read Hester, and I cannot remember who the author is, but here's the cover. This one was actually from 2022, so I would like to get that one read. I feel like that's got nice fall vibes. And then the other one that I'm hoping to read by the end of the year is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. So I have tentatively scheduled those in. Hopefully I can get them read. And then I also have a goal to not carry over any books from this year's TBRs into the new year. So that means I need to play a little bit of TBR catch up because I do have 2 books that I was meant to read from previous TBRs that I did not get to. So the first one is Tiny Pretty Things. Again, I'm like blanking on the name. It's like Danielle Clayton and Sona something that I can't pronounce, so I'm not even gonna try. But that one I believe was meant to be on my TBR in like February, and I didn't read it. And then I also have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. That one was supposed to be on my TBR, I believe, in August, and I didn't get that one read either. So I do want to get both of those read so that I do not have any carryovers into the new year. And that's it, y'all. That is the end of this quarterly reading recap for the months of July, August, and September of 2023. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more from me. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.